Horton's world welcomes you. What if winter was more than a season? What if it was born from a mother's grief, a pact with the underworld? The ancient Greeks saw winter as a reflection of a goddess's broken heart, not just a change in weather. This is the story of Persephone, whose fate shaped the cycle of life and death for mortals. Her journey from sunlit meadows to the underworld is more than a myth about seasons. It's about power, loss, and transformation. Even today, the myth endures because it speaks to universal experiences: separation, change, and hope for reunion. Tonight, we uncover the haunting truth of Persephone, the maiden of spring who became queen of the underworld. Persephone, once called Kor, was the cherished daughter of Demeter and Zeus, the very spirit of spring. Her laughter brought flowers to bloom, her presence promised abundance. Sheltered by Demeter, she lived in innocence, untouched by sorrow. But beauty attracts more than admiration. It invites possession. Shadows gathered as Persephone's light drew the gaze of those who would change her fate forever. Her story is a reminder: innocence is fragile, and power can shatter worlds. The maiden's era ends, the Queen of Shadows is about to rise. Persephone, known as Kor, was the embodiment of spring. Her laughter coaxed flowers to bloom, her steps left trails of blossoms. She lived in sunlit meadows, surrounded by nymphs under Demeter's loving watch. In her world, sorrow and death were unknown. But such radiance could not go unnoticed. Her joy became a beacon, drawing the attention of unseen eyes from the depths. Paradise is fragile, even the brightest light casts a shadow. A plan was forming in darkness, one that would change the fate of gods and mortals alike. Hades, ruler of the underworld, watched Persephone from afar, longing for her light in his realm of shadows. Knowing Demeter would never consent, he sought Zeus's approval. Zeus, for reasons unknown, agreed, betraying both daughter and sister. This was no crime of passion, but a calculated act of power. As Persephone reached for a narcissus, planted to lure her, she was unaware of the trap. The world of sunlight was about to be torn away. Innocence was about to end. In a heartbeat, the earth split open as Persephone reached for the flower. Hades emerged in a chariot of darkness, seizing her before she could cry out. The meadow fell silent, flowers scattered, and the sun dimmed. The ground closed, erasing all trace of the abduction. The world lost its maiden of spring. A chill settled over the land. This was more than a kidnapping. It shattered the cosmic balance. Persephone was dragged into the underworld, her old life gone. A new chapter began, deep in the heart of darkness. Persephone's abduction was no simple crime. It was enabled by Zeus, her own father, who silently sanctioned Hades' act. Without a word to Persephone or Demeter, Zeus sealed her fate for political gain. As Persephone was dragged into darkness, her calls for help went unanswered. The darkness that swallowed her came not just from below, but from the very throne of Olympus. When Persephone vanished, Demeter's heart filled with dread. Her desperate search began, 9 days and nights wandering, forsaking her divine duties, torches blazing, calling her daughter's name into every dark forest and silent valley. At last, Helios revealed the truth. Persephone was taken to the underworld. Grief turned to rage. Demeter vowed if her daughter was lost, the world would suffer and the earth would mourn with her. Demeter, filled with fury, abandoned Mount Olympus and descended among mortals. Her sorrow became a curse. Crops withered, seeds refused to sprout, and famine swept the land. The earth froze in grief, the first winter born from her rage. Even the gods grew alarmed as their power waned. Demeter's protest threatened gods and mortals alike, forcing Zeus to finally act. As the chasm sealed above her, Persephone was plunged into a world devoid of light, warmth, and colour. Gone were the sunlit meadows and the gentle warmth of the sun on her skin. Here there was only a profound, oppressive silence and a darkness so complete it felt like a physical weight. The chariot emerged into the vast, cavernous expanse of the underworld, a kingdom of breathtaking, melancholic grandeur. The Maiden of Spring had arrived in the land of winter, not as a visitor, but as its intended queen. Hades led Persephone into his immense palace, a marvel and a prison. The halls glittered with gold and gems, but no sunlight reached within. For all its splendor, it was a gilded cage. Hades offered Persephone power and respect, but she remained a prisoner of her own grief. Surrounded by riches and shadows, Persephone longed for freedom and sunlight, her hope fading with each passing day. In the timeless gloom of the underworld, Persephone's hunger grew. Hades waited, knowing the ancient law: to eat the food of the dead was to belong to his realm. When Persephone ate 6 pomegranate seeds, her fate was sealed. She became part of the underworld, her old life lost, her destiny forever changed. Demeter's grief plunged the world into famine. Mortals perished, and even mighty Zeus felt his power slipping as prayers faded. Gods pleaded with Demeter, but her sorrow was unyielding. She demanded Persephone's return. Zeus sent Hermes, swift messenger, to the underworld to bargain with Hades and decide the fate of all. The confrontation between Olympus and the underworld was about to begin. Hermes found Persephone and Hades on their thrones. Persephone, pale and regal, sat beside the silent, powerful Hades. The messenger spoke of Demeter's grief and the famine threatening the world. Hades listened, knowing Persephone had eaten the pomegranate seeds. A divine compromise was struck. Persephone would spend 6 months each year in the underworld, and 6 with her mother. Her fate forever bound to both worlds, Queen of the Dead and Maiden of Spring. With the pact sealed, Hermes led Persephone out of the darkness. They ascended in Hades' golden chariot, racing up from the depths and bursting forth into the world of sunlight. Demeter, who had been waiting at her temple in Eleusis, felt the return of her daughter before she even saw her. A wave of warmth and life surged through her, and she ran to meet the chariot. The reunion was ecstatic and heartbreaking all at once. Mother and daughter embraced, weeping with joy and sorrow. The light had returned to Demeter's world, and for a moment all was right again. The goddess of the harvest held her child, her grief finally subsiding. In her joy, Demeter immediately began to release her hold on the earth. She allowed the frozen soil to thaw and the seeds to quicken. But her happiness was cut short when Persephone confessed the truth of the pomegranate seeds. Demeter's heart sank, realizing that her victory was not total. Her daughter was still bound to the underworld, her return only temporary. Yet a partial victory was better than none. She accepted the divine compromise, knowing it was the only way. And so, as Persephone remained with her, Demeter allowed the world to flourish. The curse was lifted, and life exploded across the planet. This divine compromise became the mythological explanation for the seasons, the very heartbeat of the ancient agricultural world. For the 6 months that Persephone spent with her mother, Demeter was joyful, and she blessed the earth with abundance. This was the time of spring, when life returned, and summer, when it reached its peak. The grain grew tall, the trees bore fruit, and the world was bathed in warmth and light. These were the months of life, growth and reunion, a celebration of Persephone's presence in the world of the living. Mortals would plant and harvest, their lives governed by the goddess's happiness. But when the time came for Persephone to honor her pact, a great sorrow would once again fall over Demeter. As her daughter descended back into the underworld to take her place as queen beside Hades, Demeter would mourn anew. Her grief would once again cause her to withdraw her gifts from the earth. This was the time of autumn, when the leaves fell and the world began to die, and winter, when the land became cold, barren, and seemingly lifeless. The cycle was now set in stone, 6 months of light and life, followed by 6 months of darkness and sorrow, a rhythm of existence dictated by a daughter's journey and a mother's eternal love and loss. Persephone's story does not end with her being a passive victim of fate, forever divided between two worlds. Her journey through darkness gave her a unique and profound power, one that transformed her into a central figure of worship in one of the most significant religious cults of the ancient world. In the town of Eleusis, the very place where Demeter had mourned, a set of secret religious rituals known as the Eleusinian Mysteries was established to honor the two goddesses. For nearly 2,000 years, these rites were the spiritual heart of Greece, drawing initiates from all corners of the Hellenic world, from humble farmers to powerful Roman emperors like Augustus and Hadrian. These mysteries were not about explaining the seasons, they were about conquering the fear of death. The rituals were shrouded in absolute secrecy, and initiates were forbidden from ever speaking of what they saw and experienced on pain of death. What we know comes from fragmented texts and the testimony of early Christian writers who sought to condemn them. The rites reenacted Persephone's descent, Demeter's search, and Persephone's eventual return. Initiates would symbolically follow her journey into darkness, experiencing a simulated death before being brought back into the light. It was a powerful, transformative experience that promised a profound spiritual rebirth. The core promise of the Eleusinian Mysteries was the hope of a blessed afterlife. By walking in Persephone's footsteps, by descending into a symbolic underworld and returning, the initiates believed they would lose their fear of mortality. They were shown that just as Persephone returned from the realm of the dead, their own souls would find a peaceful and happy existence after death, rather than the bleak, listless eternity faced by the uninitiated shades. Persephone was no longer just a maiden or a queen. She was a psychopomp, a spiritual guide who had navigated the ultimate journey and could now show others the way. To the followers of this cult, Persephone was the key to salvation. Her story was not a tragedy, but a roadmap to eternal life. She was the one who had suffered, who had seen the darkness firsthand, and who had returned with the knowledge of both life and death. This made her a figure of immense hope and reverence. The sacred objects of the mystery, believed to be a sacred grain, symbolized the cycle of life from death that Persephone now embodied. The rites of Eleusis elevated her from a mythological character to a savior goddess, a beacon of hope against the finality of the grave. Persephone evolved from a frightened girl into the true queen of the underworld, ruling with power and respect, known as Dread Persephone. She was both feared and revered, her authority absolute. Yet she was also a gentle guide, offering compassion to souls crossing into the unknown. Persephone's duality, goddess of spring and the silent grave, made her one of the most powerful figures in Greek myth. Persephone is both innocent maiden and formidable queen of the underworld. Her story is a legacy of light and shadow. Her myth speaks to life and death, innocence and experience, sorrow and power. Persephone's journey is one of transformation. She endures darkness, finds strength, and becomes a bridge between worlds. Her legacy reminds us, after the longest winter, spring always returns. He is the dark and brilliant heart of Persephone, the goddess of complex, unsettling truths that still shape our world. And the final, terrifying question remains, What will you choose to let out? Whether myth or fact, the legend warns. Some doors are best left unopened, and the greatest unknown may lie within us. It's a puzzle box with no key, a whisper in a quiet room, reminding us of the world is stranger than it seems. As our journey ends and the candle's smoke fades, what magic will you carry forward? Challenging us, repelling us, and forever inviting us to question the limits of our own will. The answer lies in understanding our capacity for darkness and light. And ask yourself, do you believe? Do you dare to explore the unknown, to confront the shadows that lurk in the dark corners of our world? We may stumble upon truths more unsettling than the shadows themselves. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey through the history of Persephone. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to Horton's World Mythology for more explorations into the world's most fascinating myths and legends. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What other mythical creatures or legends would you like us to explore next? Share your ideas and let's keep the flame burning bright. And as always, stay curious.